F1 returns to Vegas. Earlier this week, we got the news that F1 will make its return to Las Vegas, 4 decades since its last visit there. Based on the social media comments, I saw that the reactions were mixed, to say the least. While there were a lot of people raving about the thought of racing under the neon lights of the City of Sin, there were also many who weren't too impressed. In this review, we'll be talking about what people didn't like about the announcement, and then we'll talk about why there's a silver lining behind these reasons. Now, for those people who weren't too welcoming of the race to be held in Sin City, they had a lot of reasons. Firstly, the thought of having a third race in the same country put a lot of people off. The USA already has the Circuit of the Americas race in Austin locked as the official US Grand Prix for the foreseeable future. Add to that the Miami Grand Prix, set to make its debut on the F1 calendar this year. Now, many people are asking why F1 would hold a third race in a country that doesn't even have an active driver on the grid. Some have even gone as far as to say that F1 is going after the money with this call. For me, however, I believe this is a great call. The Vegas race has the potential to help F1 further expand its market in the United States. In the past couple of years, F1 has seen a lot of growth stateside. The 2021 US Grand Prix weekend drew 40,000 fans, a record for the biggest attendance throughout a Grand Prix weekend. This has a lot of factors behind it. For one, the popularity of the Netflix series Drive to Sunset, which some F1 purists hate, and for valid reasons, has admittedly brought a lot of new fans to the sport. A lot of these fans also seem to have come from the United States. With that being said, it's only logical that the F1 brass should build on the sport's rising popularity. The new races in Miami and Vegas are a step in that direction. The next thing these people are talking about when they say that the Las Vegas GP isn't a good idea is based on the last time F1 went there. For those of you that aren't familiar with the history of the sport, Formula One held a couple of races there in 1981 and 1982. The race, formerly known as the Caesars Palace Grand Prix, was held at, you guessed it, Caesars Palace. At first glance, it does sound cool, thinking about an F1 race held at one of the most famous casinos in the world. However, when you add in the fact that it was held at a makeshift circuit in the casino parking lot under the sweltering heat, things start to look different. Nelson Piquet, who clinched that season's Drivers' Championship at Caesars Palace in 1981, took 15 minutes to recover because of the immense heat. To rub salt on the wounds, the counterclockwise direction of the race also put a tremendous strain on the drivers' necks. Needless to say, the Caesars Palace Grand Prix was a disaster. The Caesars Palace GP isn't the only instance where Formula One held a terrible race weekend on American soil. There's the Dallas Grand Prix, most notable for Nigel Mansell fainting while trying to push his stricken Lotus across the finish line. In response to those comments, I believe that the Las Vegas Grand Prix will be very different from the previous races. It will no longer be held in a parking lot under the punishing desert sun. F1 has released the track layout along with some details. This time around, it's going to be a street race, at night, under the famous neon lights of the city. To add to that, the track layout is showing a lot of promise. Slow and fast corners have the potential to provide hard racing, a far cry from the parking lot of 4 decades ago. However, the cherry on top that has a lot of people excited is the monster straight along the famous Las Vegas Strip. Imagine the prospect of Formula One cars going wheel to wheel at 300 kilometers an hour down the strip. Isn't that amazing? I believe that this could threaten the status of Monaco as the race where glitz and glamour reign. I mean, sure, we can't deny the history of the Monaco Grand Prix, but the Las Vegas Grand Prix can take things to a whole new level. Furthermore, like Monaco, this race has the potential to be a historical and cultural event. The Las Vegas GP can be a gathering of the who's who of the world today, while being in a place far more accessible to the average fan than Monaco. Couple that with the possibility of better racing than Monaco, and you have some event on your hands. Overall, there's been some criticism on F1 about the Las Vegas Grand Prix, and thinking about it, most of them are valid. However, I believe that we should give it a chance. There's been a lot of sweeping changes to the sport, from the new regulations coming into effect this season to an increase in races in new circuits, and to open the sport to a wider fan base. I believe that the F1 brass has performed well in these past few years. I believe F1 has rebounded spectacularly from being cancelled because of the pandemic. The past 2 seasons have been nothing short of epic, and this season projects to be another one for the books. What about the 2023 season? I believe it's too early to call it. But with additions like the Las Vegas Grand Prix, things are looking up for F1. I say it was a great decision. For all the naysayers out there, I really suggest you give it a shot. I mean, what can be better than a high-speed race under the neon lights of Vegas?